Hey, what's up, everybody? Matthew Allen here with Adjuster TV, and welcome to this live stream. I'm here with Rebah Wheeling from NACA and Schedule It. And don't forget to subscribe to Adjuster TV right here on YouTube and like this video if you like it, and if you don't like it anyway. So before we get started, I really just wanted to say that we're so grateful for our advertising partners here at Adjuster TV, and I want to remind you that this show can be brought to you because of our partners who advertise with us. So please keep patronizing our sponsors. They really appreciate it, and of course we really appreciate it too. So let's just jump right into this. I'm here with one of the industry's heaviest hitters. She's a past president of the National Association of Catastrophe Adjusters, aka NACA, and she's the founder of the wildly successful and incredibly useful app and service called Schedule It. And I'm proud to introduce Rebah Wheeling. So Rebah, let's just dive right into this. You know, hurricane season is upon us for real, right? So let's talk about how adjusters can really prepare themselves to hit the ground running on their first major catastrophe deployment. So what would you say are like the top 3 to 5 things, and we can certainly add more things that new adjusters need to know right now before they deploy?
Well, first of all, thanks, Matt, for having me on.
Yeah.
It's always great to be able to help the industry. And then, so what should they be prepared for, and what kind of tools should they be taking with them on their first hurricane deployment or their 100th hurricane deployment? First of all, let's talk about ladders. Ladders seems to always be one of the biggest things that everybody's like, what ladder do I get and what size do I get? I can tell you that I worked thousands of claims, and I carried a 22 or 24 foot Werner. It was $150 at Home Depot, and it folded up in the back of my RAV4, and I was able to get on anything. I also carried a 12 foot Werner with me, so that if I did need to do one of those terrible non-OSHA things that we're not supposed to do, like
right.
But
the D word.
I got on it and I got the job done. So ladders are very critical in this. So what else? You know what? Let's talk about laser measure device.
Yeah.
This is by Bosch. I think I paid $99 for it at a Lowe's or Home Depot. I've bought several of them because for some reason or another, I sometimes would lose them or whatever. But it's just a Bosch. I didn't, especially in the beginning, I certainly didn't go out and spend, $800 or $900 on a laser measuring device that I didn't even know how to hook up to everything.
Right.
But to get the job done, me and my Bosch, we've been everywhere together.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you. Oh, tell us, hear the name.
Yes. It's probably maybe not appropriate for everybody, but, the B, stands for some things, and she is a woman that gets it done.
Right.
So Bosch has been everywhere.
Yeah, I'd say I didn't buy my first laser until Hurricane, I want to say Gene. I was in Florida, and there was a lot of interior damage. I mean, the condos, the windows were all blown out and everything's soaking wet, and everything's got like an inch of black mold on it because those condos have been sitting there for weeks. The occupants and the owners live states away, and they're not down there. It's 100 degrees outside. It's 98% humidity, and it's just sitting there all soaking wet. So, and it's hot and humid, so stuff just immediately was starting to grow. And the first time I ran my tape through all that stuff, and it came back and it rusted out, like the next day, I was like,
yes,
I got to go. I got to get a laser. And it was like, I mean, it saves you so much time. And, even like if you're in a house, if you're just like have a water stain on the ceiling, or if there's, a little bit of damage to the floor, you don't want to be running your tape measure. That tip is like, it's metal, right? And you don't want to be running it across the floor and scratching the floor or hitting a piece of furniture or something. I mean, you could, it's not, nobody wants that. And nobody wants to hear about, getting a phone call from the insured. Yeah, your adjuster was here and our credenza is, So definitely, absolutely a critical piece of equipment, especially on hurricanes, because you're going to have a lot of interior damage for sure. What else you got?
Yeah. Well, we're talking about the laser tape measures. I started in this industry through the restoration side. So I was a contractor first, then an independent. And I got taught to use a laser because I was working some sewage backups. And look, you just don't want to run your tape through that stuff.
Ugh.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and even during mul- multiple of the different hurricanes, we've seen where they've had significant backups inside the property. Not only are you dealing with the wind and maybe the flooding, but then you've got backup issues too. So just be cautious whenever you're out there and what you're using, and not putting something back into your toolbox that's going to contaminate everything else.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So you got ladders, we got measuring gadgets, we got a laser, you got your chalk. Yep, for sure.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is one of the biggest things that I try to tell everybody. Buy your supplies before you deploy. Don't
yeah,
think that you're going to get there and get them, because the number one thing that's going to be gone that everybody else is going to get is chalk. So make sure that wherever you're at now, go out and go ahead and get you a box or two boxes so that you can take that with you. Um, you know what? And this is one of the these snippers, I guess they are.
yeah,
Can you see that? Okay.
yep, yep,
I use these things more to be able to cut up carpet samples, or for ITEL, or for siding samples. I mean, I know that we have the apps now, but sometimes you still have to send it in,
yeah.
and these snippers came in great. So,
Oh yeah, I mean those things are indispensable for sure.
yeah. Yeah. So, make sure that when you're talking about your gear, that you definitely, have your cougar paws or whatever. You don't want to have to get there and have pads that are bad.
Yeah.
Get yourself some extra pads now. And then probably one of the biggest things is clothing. I mean, making sure
Mm-hmm.
that you got the right clothes, and your gear that's going to be able to, help you not have to take time doing those things whenever you get there, because you're going to be going to some um, climates that are much hotter than maybe what the Northeast adjusters or even the North adjusters. You're in Montana, right?
Yeah. Yep.
What's your weather today?
It was a little warm today, but it's normally, I mean, it'll get down to 50 tonight, so it's going to be, and it's dry.
Yeah,
It's not
right.
107 with,
Lot different than what they're
it
talking
is.
about in South Texas right now, the adjusters I
Oh
just been on
man.
the phone with all day.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we have, so there's gear that we got to get, and a lot of the, like you said, absolutely critical, getting it before you go. I
Yes.
always say, always, always, always practice before you go. Make sure you got the wrapper off of the ladder and that it works and everything. Because I've had that happen. I bought a brand new ladder. I'd been an adjuster for years, and sometimes you're not near your home when you get deployed, and you just go straight to this cat site and just buy stuff there, right? So
Yeah.
I bought an extension ladder. It was a 24-foot ladder, aluminum ladder, and had a plastic wrap around it with a big piece of paper label. And I got it to the insurance house. I'm cutting that stuff off of there, and it was an extension ladder, and the two pieces were jammed somehow. I don't know how that was.
Oh,
And I'm like in the guy's
oh,
driveway, and he's standing out there, like he's like so excited that you could take a look at the roof. This isn't going to take hardly any time at all. Da da da. And I'm like, I can't get it to go, and I can't get it to reach his gutter. And he's like, well, I got a mallet in here, so he hands me a rubber mallet, and I'm beat. It took me 10 minutes to get that thing broke loose before I could get on his roof. So make sure, even if you're experienced and you do like, I can't tell you the number of ladders I've purchased and left places or just sold on eBay or given away. So make sure you got your gear. Make sure that you have like consumables, right? So that's where you're talking about like
yes.
chalk, printer paper, printer cartridges, all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Have a little bit of
Camera.
yeah, have a little backup supply. Make sure that your SD card is cleared and everything, and that you got it set to like the lower setting, right? Because you can do a whole summer's worth of storms on one card, right, without even having to erase it.
Oh, yeah.
So, what else you got? What else you can think
Mhm.
of?
One of the, talk about cameras. Making sure on your tool belt that you have one of those little curly things that you can attach to your camera.
Yeah, like a little zinger.
Tell you, yeah. we were on a house over in Lancaster, Kentucky one time that had a bad hailstorm, and or they had a really good hailstorm.
Right.
And I was on top of the two-story, and the guy was down in the driveway, and he was waxing his daughter's brand new car. He was so excited,
Oh no.
and I dropped the tape measure
Oof.
onto the new car and put a big dent in the hood. So it took me a few minutes to come off the roof. He was very, very nice. He said it was just a car. I don't know how many dads would have had that same opinion, but
Right.
just making sure that your tape measure and your camera or whatever are bungee corded to your tool belt so that they don't fall off the roof.
Yeah.
Not only and break, but and cause any other damage. So
Exactly. Well, let's talk about. I mean, there's all kinds of little pieces of gear that we can get, but let's talk a little bit about software.
yeah,
So we use Xactimate primarily. I mean, there's SimSol and Symbility that are used as well, but for a lot of the carriers out there, we're using Xactimate, right? So let's talk a little bit about what we, maybe let's talk about like the machine that we need to use to run Xactimate, any support things that we need, like maybe Microsoft Word or, Office or whatever. And then kind of what we can do before we ever get deployed to be ready to hit the ground running with all that stuff so that we're not like opening up our laptop for the first time when we first get deployed.
yes. So first things first, if this is your very first deployment and you've never used Xactimate before, I would suggest that you do not deploy. You know, you need to be hooked up with a mentor or somebody. You need to be paired up with somebody. So if you get an IE firm that is calling you, and you've never used Xactimate, the most important thing is for you to be honest, because this might be a very large industry, but it's a very small industry.
Yeah.
And if you accept claims and you don't know how to write an Xactimate or SimSol or Symbility, whichever platform, then people remember that. And, somebody that's at this firm today may be at this firm tomorrow, or at this carrier as a vice president tomorrow. So just keep that in mind. It's not a bad thing to not have used Xactimate before. So I just want to first clarify that. Second of all, make sure that, you've downloaded it, that you've got a running, a version of it right now. And, I just talked to one of the adjusters this week that's on a deployment in South Texas. And I said, hey, last time I talked to you, you said you were installing X1. He's like, yeah, that lasted me about 2 hours, Rebah. So I had to uninstall X1, and then I had to reinstall 28. So
Right.
whatever you're comfortable with right now and that you're using, you need to stay with. So don't try to make a change in the process.
Right. And a lot of times the carriers are going to, especially the bigger ones, they're going to say, we use 28. We haven't made the transition to the X1. So when you show up at orientation, you hand somebody your laptop and they'll just get you fixed up. Hopefully, but not always the case. I think, I don't know, a lot of IA firms, I don't think are it's not like a requirement that you have a level 2 certification for Xactimate.
Yeah.
But I personally, and you tell me your thoughts on it, I mean, I would recommend getting that training.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I'm a huge supporter of Xactimate and X1. I think it's going to be a great system whenever it gets there. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm downing it. If anybody understands the progression of software, I do.
Yeah.
And it will keep progressing and it will keep being better. But, whatever you're using today, don't change it. Keep using that. Okay. So back to your question. In regards to, what's the best way to be able to go about the certification route?
Sure.
I think the certifications are any education that you can get is going to be a benefit to you. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it requires you to be able to put forth effort, but it's only going to help you.
Right.
The more knowledgeable that you are about Xactimate, the faster you're going to be about writing estimates, the faster you're going to get claims closed, and then obviously the faster you get the claims closed, the more claims you're going to get.
Right,
So
exactly.
you're only investing in yourself if you get levels 2 or 3 certified in Xactimate. So it's, how much investment do you want to do in you?
For sure, for sure. And it's like you said, it's like I was saying earlier. I mean, a lot of IA firms are they're like, yeah, I don't care as long as you can use it. It is for you, right? All of this
Yes.
stuff, all this training. It's not like you're just like there's a short list of things you got to tick off in order to become an adjuster. You have to be good because you're really your first like we'll call it a job interview or like your first real resume thing. It's your first storm,
Yeah.
right? And if it's a big cat like a hurricane, I don't know. Maybe you know the stats on this, but how many
Yeah.
people who have never run claims before show up at an orientation on a big hurricane? How many of those people do you think end up at the end of that storm still running claims, to have claims turned in and getting new claims, and then moving on to the next storm?
I would think that that all depends on your network, your network of peers.
Right.
That's one of the greatest things about NACA. I'm going to go off on a NACA
Sure.
tangent, put my
Absolutely.
past president hat back on for a second. I was so gifted. I went to NACA for 3 years before I even became an independent as a contractor because I was investing in myself.
Yeah.
Um, then, whenever I did get deployed, I had a network of people that I could call up and say, hey, how do I handle this? Or what do I do about this? Or my file reviewer is saying this is how should I handle this? So really it depends on, you've got to network and you've got to have a group of, 3 or 4 people that you have their phone number, and I call them the lifeline.
Yeah.
Here's my lifeline to this person and to this person and to this person. And in the middle of a storm, you at least have somebody that you can call because it gets pretty lonely inside those hotel rooms all by yourself. You don't know what,
For
and
sure.
it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's the thing about the Adjuster TV group. You can go in there and you can post a question in the Facebook group. That's what I love about your group, and that there are other people on at 3 o'clock in the morning like you when you're trying to write an estimate. You don't know what to do. So, that's a great networking resource.
Yeah. Yeah. So it depends on, it's not just like we were talking about, like ticking off the boxes. You got, a computer now, you got some printer cartridges, and, you took
Yeah.
Xactimate boot camp. You got to practice
Yep.
for sure with this
Yep.
stuff. You got to know your
Yes.
gear. And then you're absolutely right. I mean, as far as like really kind of a critical piece of being able to survive a cat deployment, because most people don't. More than
No.
50%. Well, I'd say way more than 50%. Brand new
Yeah.
people, if they just got into the industry and they said, oh, there's this big hurricane thing, which is what happens for a lot of people, and that's how they get into this industry. They wash out, they're gone, and they've spent a bunch of money and they didn't make any money, and they think it's, those people might be some of the ones that show up in some, social media and say what it's a
Yeah.
racket and it's a this and that and the other thing. But if you, like you said, if you've got a network of people that you can reach out to, that you can rely on, you can't go it alone. Even experienced adjusters years into their careers, I'm still like texting people or calling a guy or sending them a little video or picture or something and saying,
Yeah.
dude, what do I do with this thing? Or what would you do here? It's absolutely critical.
I
So,
mean, there's always going to be something that you don't know. And, you got to have the, self-confidence to be able to say you don't know it
yeah,
and to call and to be able to have a network of people. So, if this is your first deployment and you're going to an orientation, I would definitely tell you, ask around and see how many other storms or, hurricanes the adjusters have been on, and get the names and phone numbers of the people that have been around the longest. You'll know who they are because everybody will be talking to them from the management.
right. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
I would definitely do whatever you can to network on short notice like this. I mean,
Yeah.
that was Hannah down there in South Florida or South Texas. I
Yeah.
don't know if Douglas did anything over in Hawaii, or if even like mainland people can even go over there. But this is like, when I say, people are like, well, hurricane season starts in end of May. And I'm like, no, it starts August 15th is when it really starts. I've never gone on a hurricane that was before the middle of August. And like September, I mean, September is when it's going to really explode. I mean, it's if it's going to do anything, that's usually when it does it, typically. So you got a window here. If you're watching this and you're like, I've got my license, I got this, I got that. Be ready. I mean, if you've gotten your brain wrapped around Xactimate, if you're willing to practice a little bit every day, I always say, pretend like you got a water spot on the ceiling. Take a picture of it. Bring that picture, take a few pictures or whatever. Bring those pictures into Xactimate. Import them into a new file that you just, dummy file or whatever. Label them so that you've done this. You get a little bit of muscle memory, and then write an estimate for it. And then kind of work through the parts of the claim. Write an activity diary. And then tomorrow, do it again. Right? Okay, well, the rain came in the window over there. I see there's some, casing on that window. It's got stain on it. And there's some, it looks like, maybe it ran down the wall. What do I do with that? Right? Because those are the claims you're going to get, right? It's not all going to be like the house is gone, or half of it's flooded, half of it's wind damage. I mean, it's 90% of the hurricane claims I've ever gotten have been like tree damage claims, right? Trees on the roof, trees on the fence, trees on this, trees on that, and then shingles blown off, water spot on the ceiling. I mean, it's the hurricane claim. You get dozens and dozens of those, and you want to be able to just burn through those. You don't want to be standing there in the insured's living room, scratching your head.
What do I do?
What do I do? Yeah. So
you don't want to have to. You don't want them to have to go get a rubber mallet.
Exactly. Yeah, and hit yourself in the forehead with it because you didn't prepare, right? And it's. I mean, I'm not talking about like spending 4 hours a day doing this. I mean, it's 20 minutes, half hour, right? That's all. It's all it takes. It's just getting in there, a little bit every single day, just for a few minutes. It's like, learning to play the guitar. You can pick up one song and then spend 15 minutes every day just trying to play it. And then 15 minutes stops and you're going on doing the next thing. And then before you know it, you've learned Stairway to Heaven, right?
Exactly.
All right. So speaking of gear, we've just been talking a little bit about the gear that you guys need to be effective out of the gate on your first storm deployment, or really even your 51st storm deployment. And I want to let you guys know that to get some discounts on some good gear, like the critical gear that you need, head on over to adjustertv.com/resources. A lot of those links go to our partners, including our friends at Adjuster Supply. But there's a lot of stuff in there, including software and other services. And you can go again to adjustertv.com/resources. I try to put the resources in there that I think that are the most critical and the most needed, and it directs you to other resources that you can, where you can build out your kit, like going to Adjuster Supply. So definitely check that out. Okay, so next up, we talked about getting prepared to be in a hurricane, but what can we expect, right? I mean, what should we expect when they call us and they put us on standby? What does that even mean? What's standby? What do we do?
Matt, they don't call us anymore. They text us.
Oh, yeah, right.
You're showing your age in the industry. It's funny because I just got a text message from one of the IA firms literally while we were doing this, and I'm like, oh wow, it's so great to see them texting,
Yeah.
But what does standby mean? So the best way to be able to say this, if you accept standby, it's no different than having family dinner. Everybody comes over and you're all eating together. But you have to determine who you want to be able to go actually deploy with.
Right.
And just like I just got off the phone 5 minutes before you called me, Matt, and I had an adjuster call and say, hey, you know what? I got another firm that wants to give me 40 more claims down here in South Texas. It is so hot, Rebah. Do you think I should take them? And I'm like, no, you're already with one firm.
Oh,
and I
another
know
company.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
He's already there deployed and has 40 claims. And so now he's going to get another 40 from another firm. And, at that point, all you see are dollar signs.
Right.
But don't do it. Yes. Don't do it. You're only
No,
going to cause yourself more problems.
that's a
If
no-no.
you
Big one.
know, yes, if you deploy with a firm, stick with that firm.
Yeah. Well, so
Yeah.
and as far as like standby, so say IA firm A calls me and says, "Hey, we want to put you on standby for Hurricane Hannah. Yes or
Yeah.
no?" Or they text you. Sorry, or they TikTok you. You know.
Yeah. You know?
And but then like so you say yes to that. Yes, I'm going to do. You text back yes. Then 5 minutes later, IA firm B, same text message. Hey, we're putting together a roster for Hurricane Hannah. Do you want to go? Can we put you on standby? What do you do?
Yes. Yeah. You can go to standby for as many as you want. But once you get deployed, anybody else that calls you or that you've committed to be on standby to, you should communicate to them that you have been deployed so that they can take you off their standby roster. It's common courtesy, that these firms, they are depending upon you because you've said that you will be on standby for them. But you've got to take care of your own business as well. So, the more people that you can get on standby with, that's great. But once you've accepted a deployment, you need to let everybody else know that you're no longer able to stand by for them so that they're not depending upon you.
Right, right. And I don't think it can really be said enough that, I'm most particular on any catastrophe deployment, but very particularly on hurricanes and major
Yes.
cat deployments, you cannot work for more than one company at a time. You absolutely cannot do it. If you do it, I mean, maybe you're some kind of superstar and you can, but chances are you're going to be, I mean, 40 claims to start. And if you're doing well, if you're closing claims,
Right.
they're going to give you 40 more. I mean, they're going to keep piling
Yeah.
stuff on you. So you don't need to like try to stack them with other, because there's not enough time in the day. And plus that, maybe they send you to, well, we're finish up the 17 we just sent you and drive, we're going to move you 6 hours down the beach. But you still have
Right.
stuff in this area right here where you're at. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Do not do it. You can do it on daily. Like if you live in,
Yep.
pick a town, right? And maybe you live in
Kentucky.
Western Kentucky or Western Nebraska or something, and there aren't a lot of adjusters there. You're not going to have a whole lot of volume from one company at a time, but so you can stack those, right? So you might get one or two or three claims a month from each IA firm, and you just stack them
Yeah.
up until you got a nice load to keep you busy, right? And you can do really really well doing daily. And I'll tell you what, when they put you on standby, and you're a daily adjuster and you want to like make the best of the storm, I would say no. I'm here. I'm doing dailies, right? Because everybody
Yep.
else is going to leave, and your volume is going to go up. Your production is going to have to go up because there's more. There's going to be a lot more stuff for you to do at home, and you could be really really busy, and then and if you're able to handle it, then you're able to make a bigger name for yourself. And the next thing, those guys want to come back, and then I'm handling it. Matt's got it, right?
Yeah.
So there's two ways to do the hurricane thing, and you can chase them. And if that's all you want to do, like in the downtime, you go to the beach or you go visit family or you just want to sit on the lawn chair on the front porch. That's fine, but I would say pick one or the other. Sometimes I think you can do both, but let's talk a little bit about what you would
Yeah.
say. What you would say. Just have you ever had this happen? Like your brain just like shuts off for a second, and then it turns back on. I just did a reboot there. So,
Never.
tell me a story. Let's do this. Tell me a story about your very very first like major cat deployment. Did you have an orientation and what? Tell me all about what happened. Because I think people
Oh
have
my God.
questions about like what orientation's like and what they're going to expect from you when you show up on a cat site.
Yeah, so that's a great question, to be able to talk about, what's it like whenever you're first getting there. Well, first of all, whenever, one of my first deployments, I had to be able to figure out like where's a hotel that I can afford to be able to get to. And then, then they're telling me about orientation. I need to be there at 8 o'clock the next day. So I've driven all day the day before and I'm exhausted, right? And So I finally find the hotel where I'm supposed to be at. And, I walk in and there's, everybody's, it's a larger classroom, probably held about 100 people. But I just remember like when I was walking in, there was this Prius out front that had like a really long ladder attached to the hood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not the hood, like the top of it.
Right.
And I was like looking for that person. I was like, who is driving a Prius that has this really long ladder? I mean, the ladder was longer than the car.
Right.
But they did the best they could. We went to orientation. They had us sign in, and really, it was a great time because they specifically, introduced their management team, introduced all their reviewers. Then they, had some of the older adjusters that were in the room. They stood up, and they made sure that everybody kind of knew who to go to for help, right? Then they told us where is their war room, is that they called it, and that's really their help room. And then, they went over, this is the carriers that we're going to be representing, and here's some examples, and here's a thumb drive of some macros for Xactimate. I still have those macros.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, even that long ago. And then, they connected us with some other people that were in the classroom. And then it was like, okay, here's your, we're already assigning claims and, go ahead and start getting them scheduled. You need to make first contact as soon as possible. So it was a nice day. It wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't stressful. But, it was a little nerve wracking walking in, of course, because I didn't know anybody. But, I just got my, back then I was always drinking Mountain Dew. Got my Mountain Dew and, was just ready to get started.
Now it's Rockstar energy drink, right?
I didn't do anything in the computer or nothing that day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first cat deployment was back in 2000, and it was for the big red one. And I was living on the West Coast at the time, and the storm was a big hailstorm in Chicago. And I drove straight through. I mean, I kind of bet actually I had some friends that were like, hey, we got sent to Chicago for hail, you should call in. So I did, and they were like, well, no, I mean, I don't know. And I begged a little bit, and they were like, okay, well, if you could be there, by tomorrow, whatever. And I was like, yeah, I can. And I drove 35 hours, stopped once for like a 3-hour nap, which was, I was like 29 years old, so I was somehow able to do that.
Exactly.
But I rolled into the CAT office, and I was wearing a Hawaiian shirt and board shorts and flip-flops. And I walked in the door, like big grin on my face, like, I'm here, guys. And the red shirts and the khaki pants, everybody turned and looked, and it just was completely silent. And that was like State Farm people and, the IA firm people, and the IA firm manager who was like, I've discovered very, very quickly that he was like very serious, no nonsense guy. He like turns and looks at me. He's like, talking to somebody, and he looks at me and he goes, and like I was like, okay, and I like followed him into a room. And he just like chewed me out. He's like, yeah, if you ever forget, who even are you? Da, da, da. I was like, I'm so sorry. He's like, you don't ever show up into a CAT office without a business casual at the minimum, storm shirts if you got them, khaki pants, not tennis shoes.
No jeans.
No jeans.
No
Do not
jeans.
wear shorts or jeans unless they say you can wear shorts and you're like in South Florida or like it's a bazillion degrees or whatever. But I still wouldn't, I mean, whatever they tell you to do. But 99.99% of the time they're going to say khakis and a golf shirt, right? A solid color. And, on my orientation, I mean, that was kind of back in the day a little bit, but it's fundamentally the same. It was like you get your door magnets, you get your customer handouts, right? Sometimes they have you print them yourself. They definitely give you a thumb drive, or they send you an email with a great big zip file on it that's got like the estimating guidelines, all the policies, macros. Yeah. If there's an IT person there, if you're lucky and you go with somebody that's bigger and has these resources, like I said, I mean, they may say, well, what version of Xactimate did you have? If you hesitate, if you don't know, if you're not sure, they're going to take your laptop from you. And they'll probably take it from you anyway to set it up with the company header, right? The model opening statement and all that stuff, and they'll get that. Hopefully somebody does that for you. If not, they might say, well, there's a job aid in that zip file that we sent you that tells you how to do all that stuff. if you don't do it right, your file is going to get kicked back. So if you're like, some people will scope. They think that, especially new people, they think, well, I'll scope and scope and scope and scope, and then I'll just like go sit in my hotel room, or I'll go home and just write.
No.
Right? Every single one of those files is getting kicked back for something, even if it's just for something small, like the wrong header. It's just, that's a whole other topic, but it's make sure that your stuff is set up before you accept new claims. A lot of times you'll go through like orientation, like they might do like next gen or ECS training for a day, or like a roof process, and you have to attend those, especially if you're brand new. Sometimes I've been on hurricanes where they do like an Xactimate refresher, right? And it may be in that classroom where they like help you set up your laptop for, running claims, put your name and number in there, and all the stuff that you have to do that you only want to have to do it once, because if you accept your claims before doing that stuff, then you have to do it on every single one. But if it's already set up and then you accept your claims, then it applies that to every new claim that you get. So there's a lot of stuff, and I've seen people like, I remember sitting in orientation
So can you pause right there for a second, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to make sure all the new people understand what Matt is talking about. Is that when you're going to orientation and they have somebody there that is setting up your Xactimate, what he's talking about is that there's headers, there's opening statements, there's closing statements, there's, different, whether or not you're charging for openings whenever you're painting, or not openings, or door frames, or things like that. They will go through and they will set up your Xactimate the way it's supposed to be set up, so that all of your claims are then written and have those parameters, I guess maybe is the best word, or settings already done.
Right.
If you don't let them do that before you start writing estimates, then the estimates that you send in will have to be redone. And this is going to cause you big headaches. So if you're going to your first appointment, make sure that you take the time to be able to find out, are there any special settings for your Xactimate that need to be set up?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Matt. Keep going. I just didn't want them to figure out, we've been doing it for so long.
Yeah. No, and I can forget that it's like I'm not talking to people who've been doing this for a while. No, I mean, some people, it's Alan Freeman, and he's just said he's been doing this for 11 years. He's never been to an orientation. He's just giving claims and go to work. And that's a lot of the time that's the case, And I would say for the vast majority of storms I've ever worked, especially hail, they might do like a conference call for a half hour or whatever. But other than that, they're just going to give you claims and send you out the door, right? On these big events, like on Hurricane Katrina, I watched people walk into the gym down there in Mobile, Alabama, where the big induction center, and they had like a cart pushing a desktop computer with a monitor on it and everything, and like a file cabinet. And I'm like, and their eyes are really big, and they're like looking around. I'm like, oh, geez, this is not gonna be good. But in one guy, we were sitting in the next gen, it was exactly, I can't remember what it was, but anyway, and he started, like his phone started to ping, and he's like, well, I'm getting new claims. And he'd never done, I did talking to him before the thing started, never done claims before. He got up and just left. He's like, I got to go do these claims. I'm like, no. You have to finish this, dude. All of us are going to get new claims, right? It's not, they can wait, right? They've been waiting already. It's going to be okay. Do not leave orientation until you've done everything that they need you to do, especially roof process stuff on some companies.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you how to do the brittleness tests, and you have to know how to do that. If you don't, and you start turning in files, you're totaling out roofs, and you didn't do a brittleness test, or vice versa. Just stay at orientation if you can, right? And don't show up wearing jeans and a t-shirt or shorts or skirts or anything. Just everybody wear khakis. Everybody, khakis and a golf shirt is the safe way to go. If you want to stop it, pick up something on the way. You talked about clothes earlier. When I go on CAT, I take 2 weeks worth of like t-shirts and underwear and socks, because there's no way I want to get a chance to do laundry before that period. So, and I just have like several golf shirts, several pairs of pants, and you have to do laundry at some point, but you want to be able to like really hit it for at least a couple of weeks beforehand. So, that always, my wife is like, she's like, how do you have so many? Because I'd go on these storms and buy more underwear.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have time to go to do laundry now, so I'm just going to go, or I can't find a wash and fold. I'm in Target, buy more underwear. So I have bins full of underwear and socks. And it's like, she finds all these, like, these all have to go to Goodwill. It's like, 70 pounds of underwear. So yeah, you got to do what you got to do. And it's, it just is what it is. I remember what I was going to say earlier when my brain switched off, but we're going to kind of hit that in a little bit. So,
okay, but Brad asked, is underwear required? And, yes.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. Because you're going to get sweaty.
Yep.
You need something to like kind of protect your outer clothes. Like, especially that's why I wear an undershirt under all my storm shirts, because that's the shirt that gets dirty and stinky. I mean, the outer shirt can get dirty if you get chalk and stuff all over, but you can make a golf shirt or whatever. You can make it last a few days if you just always put a fresh undershirt on and always take a shower. Right.
So Larry asked, as a new adjuster who's never been deployed, do I finish in the home, or does it go to the reviewer first and then you give them to the estimate? That's like a great question, Larry. Whenever you're estimating the damages, yes, you're not typically going to give that to the homeowner, especially if you're brand new. You will go back to your storm site or whatever, and then you will submit the estimate to a file reviewer who will then review it and return it for any modifications or, corrections that need to be made. And then it will go to the carrier for a final review, and then the carrier will be the one that will submit that to your homeowner. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I mean, it can depend on who you're with as well. And this is a really super important thing that they teach you in orientation. And if you happen to be, have gotten started in this earlier in the spring, and you manage to go train with an IA firm, they're going to put you through their carrier certifications, right? So like a lot of companies, they say, well, we have free training. They train you to like State Farm, they train you to Allstate, or they train you to Liberty Mutual or whatever, right? So a lot of times you have to be certified in order to run claims for those companies in most cases. And they're going to tell you exactly what the process is. They may say, you go to the house, you scope the damage, you take photos, you take that back to your hotel room, write it up, and send it in, and then we'll take care of it from there. Or they may say, some companies, they may say, go scope it, take photos, write it up on site, and hand the insured a check, right? And as a brand new person, you're never going to have that duty until they've given you authority to do that, and they'll usually run you through 10 or 20 claims and say, okay, well, you've got 10 claims in, you've got $2,500 worth of draft authority, right? You can write a claim and write a check on site for up to $2,500. And then if you do well at that, and they, because they're going to review your work, right? They know you're new, then they might knock that up to $7,500 or $5,000 or $10,000, and then once you're like, in the groove and you really got it figured out, and they start to trust that you can do it, then that's when you get a much higher authority. Usually I think we cap out at around $25,000 before we have to get authority from, management. But that's basically how that works. And they'll tell you, I mean, they're not just, some companies may just send you out there without any instruction and just, good luck to you. But a lot of companies, they don't want you to fail. They want you to be able to take these claims and run with them and take care of the customers, take care of the carrier, and make it a success for everybody, for sure. Which kind of brings me to, let's talk a little bit about turnaround time, cycle time. How many claims should people be doing in a day, especially if they're new?
Great question. So, with Schedule It, I see what everybody's doing.
Right.
I get to see, how many people are doing, 2 a day or 10 a day. And typically, the guys that are doing 10 a day, they've got a wife that's back in the RV or in the hotel, that's writing those claims for them. So, how many should you schedule a day? So, first of all, let's talk about scheduling. If you are brand new, do not schedule more than 2 claims per day for your first week. And take at least 2 days off without doing inspections. And those are your writing days, we call them. Okay, so if we're looking at Sunday through Saturday, your most efficient days that you're going to have more homeowners at home is definitely Saturday and Sunday. So I see a lot of guys that take Tuesdays and Thursdays as their writing days,
Mm-hmm.
because those are the days that the file reviewers are typically in the offices and the desk adjusters, at the carrier. So they're able to get more files closed because they took those 2 days during the week and didn't inspect that they were working on closing claims. I would definitely say no more than 2 per day if you're brand new to be able to start out with. And then you can always add more people on. But if you've booked people at 5 a day or even 4 a day, and you have to move them later, they are going to call the carrier and they're going to complain. And then the carrier is going to call the IA firm, and then the IA firm is going to call the manager, and then the manager is going to call you.
Yeah.
And they're going to do that little thing that happened to Matt. They're going to be like,
Exactly.
Or they're going to be texting you, call me now.
Yes.
Those things. Yes. So, it's one of it may feel like you want to do it faster, but it's always easier to move people up than it is to move them back.
Yeah.
So I would suggest 2 a day to begin with if you're brand new. And definitely give yourself plenty of time. Do an average inspection time of an hour and a half, and give the window of time arrival to the homeowner of 3 hours. Okay, so if you did your first one at 9 and they were close by, and you started your second one, and you give yourself an hour and a half, and you started your second one at 10:30 on the arrival time to the insured, maybe you really didn't finish that first one until 11, but you give your arrival time of 3 hours between 10:30 and 11:30, 12:30, 1:30. So you told the second person you would be there between 10:30 and 1:30. So that arrival window is there to be able to help you, so that you can have that fluctuation in the scheduling. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, one of the big things that I think makes a difference on a customer service level is definitely not saying, sorry, I can't get to you today. I'm gonna have to move you till 2 weeks from now. If you under promise and over deliver, right? So if you make your schedule out to where it's going to be 2 a day for, or even 1 a day for your first week, 2 a day, 3 a day, as the weeks go on, you can always move people up. You're like, okay, I'm getting this. I can do this. I have like 6 extra hours in a day. Jump on the phone and call those people, a bunch of people back, and start filling in your schedule, right? And if you do, and there's a lot of different ways that you can run your schedule, absolutely. But I would say, if you make a window like that, and you say I'm going to be there between 10:30 and 1:30, then I'm starting to wrap up at this one. And I go get in the car. I'm calling that insurer and I'm saying I'm on my way, or I text them if that's their thing, or I'll be there in 15 minutes, just so that they're not sitting there looking out the window still. Okay, he's going to be here in 15 minutes. I can go to the bathroom, or I can go to whatever, finish this. I would always say, imagine that you're the homeowner and that you're waiting for somebody to come for something big and serious. Having a claim on your homeowner's policy is not a small deal, right? You don't want to be like the UPS guy. You don't want to be like the pizza guy or the dishwasher repair guy. You want to be somebody who's very communicative, even if you have to initially say, I'll be there sometime between 10:30 and 1:30. I'll call you as soon as I know exactly what time. And you'll know because you're just wrapping up your first claim. You're done with it at 10:30. You're done with it at 11:15. Call the next insured and say, I'll be there at 11:40 or whatever it is. And I'll see you then.
Right.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
Because sometimes things come up for people, and I can't stress enough. Be easy to communicate with as an adjuster, and your customer service scores will always be high. And And speaking of high, customer service scores, that metric is something that the carriers and your IA firms is the top of the list for you, right? They want you to be a good adjuster, have a good file, be technically accurate. Don't have too much override or underwrite on a claim, but more than anything, they want the customer to be happy with the experience. Right? And that means being friendly and communicative, under promise, over deliver, Simple things. It really is simple. I mean, it's just picture yourself going to McDonald's, right, and standing there. The kid behind the cash register is bad mouthing the person at the next thing. Well, there's other adjusters, man. You'd be like, what? I just want to order a sandwich. Why are you talking? I don't care about that. I mean, it's, I don't know. That's a whole other tangent as well. So, speaking of,
and Michael, he said, I actually give them a set time. If I'm going to be a little late, I called them.
Yeah.
Totally get it. Everybody can do it however they want to. Matt and I are just really trying to tell you, what we've seen work in the industry and what works best. Even a 15-minute window, just giving yourself that time, because, they will call the carrier. If you tell them that you're going to be there at 9:00 and you're literally around the corner, they will call the carrier and say, he's not here.
Yep, exactly right.
Yeah,
I do
just
listen.
Trying to prevent anything from going to the carrier.
I would say on daily claims, I'm always giving them a time. Like, I'll be there at 9:00. But on CAT, like my first one, I'll be there at 8:00 on the dot, and then my next one, if it's hail, I'm telling my next appointment after my 8:00, I'm going to say I'll be there sometime between 8 and 9, or between 9 and 10, right? So I'm budgeting like 50 minutes or so at that first appointment. I'm assuming I'm going to probably do 50 at each one, but you never know. They might have 700 yards of fence and something way down at the back of the yard. We forgot to tell you that we have 9 outbuildings, and I mean, right? You asked them when you called them initially, like, hey, do you got any outbuildings? Yeah, we got 1 or 2, and you get there and there's 6. It happens all the time. So you give yourself a buffer that way. But
up in northern Michigan,
yeah,
oh my gosh,
Minnesota is the same way. Yeah,
Nebraska,
sheds.
They got more outbuildings than they got
sheds.
Houses.
So speaking of which, let's just talk about Schedule It for a minute, because this is the kind of thing when you use Schedule It, you can route your claims, and you can have Schedule It contact your insureds for you, and you can build out that questionnaire, and you can find all this stuff out beforehand before you even get to the house. So I really want you to tell us everything about Schedule It, including how much it is.
So, as an adjuster, we identified that we just wasted a lot of time trying to be able to get a hold of insureds and leaving our messages and calling and calling and calling. And so, we come up with Schedule It, which is a software program. In the beginning, back in the old days, we used to actually have girls that made the calls, but now it's morphed, and so when I'm talking about Xactimate and, it's going to get better, then I'm talking about Schedule It, and it's gotten a lot better. It's totally different than it was even 2 years ago. So, your claims come in, you can see them on a map, and you have your calendar right there and on the same screen. You can hit the route button, and you've already put in your preferences, how you want your route, how many you want a day, what time do you want to start, what days off do you want, what's your average inspection time, what's the window that you want to get to the homeowner.
Yeah, drive time.
And then, yeah, and you know what? You actually do it from your mobile app too. You can hit the route button. And then it'll route the claims and put them onto the calendar, the same as we used to manually do. Did you ever use Streets and Trips?
Oh, yeah.
Did you use Google Maps?
I use Google Maps now. Or it is Exact Analysis's map thing, but it's manual.
Yep.
I have to look at it and say, okay, I want to do this, and...
Yeah, so this does all that for you. And then it will send text messages to the insureds that says, hey, Matt Allen's your adjuster. Here's his phone number. And then they have to respond. So it's two-way communication. It's not just a mass text. And then we send them a link, and then they open up that link, just like they would for Ticketmaster. And they go through a series of questions based on the claim type, and we're triaging them. Essentially, how many outbuildings do you have? How many interior rooms are damaged, so that, it knows. And then at the very end, it says, okay, this is the date and time that Matt's going to be available to be at your house. Is somebody able to be there? And it's funny because I feel like whenever I'm talking to homeowners on the phone, 50 or 75% of the people are like, no, I can't do that date and time. But 11% say they can't do that date and time when they're doing it through text.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Crazy. Yeah. So, you get all those features plus a ton more for 19.99 a month.
Yeah.
That's it.
Listen, it's unlimited contacts, right? So if you're an adjuster and if you're making a living doing this job, you're doing anywhere
Yep.
from 400 to 1,000 plus claims a year, right? $20 a month,
Yep.
and it used to be per, but
Yep.
it's
Back in the day.
back in the day. But I'm gonna tell you right now. So you get that information from the insured when they go through the texting thing and they answer the questionnaire, then you can see that as part of the file, right? On in the app. So you can say, well, they've got 4 outbuildings. Okay, I'm gonna have to, I'll be ready for
Yeah.
that. And this is the biggest thing I think about this that makes it all like just ties it all together into like the ultimate scheduling app. It's not just a mapping app or a routing app or a thing that contacts people. You sync it up with exact analysis or with Symbility, or I don't even know how many other things you can sync it up with that you may be getting claims with. I mean, probably file track and whatever. It will document the file as soon as it makes that contact and gets all the information. It puts all the answers to that questionnaire in your notes for the file, and it stops the clock for your first contact, which is massive. Even if only 50%, I would say even if only 30% of the people answer the text and they do that, you've just cut 30% of the time you're going to spend making phone calls. Because I'm going to tell you right now, with 40 claims, I've did the math on this and I've done it, I don't know how many times. If you have 40 claims and I have to go in and set the claims up, right? I have to go through and route them. So I got to print out all the loss reports and see where they are, and then I have to build my schedule based on that, right? It's on paper.
Yep.
I mean, I could use apps for it, and I'm sure there's other. If we're doing it from scratch, right, and you just have a quick and dirty, let's do this. Then I got to call everybody, and you could spend anywhere from 5 to 25 minutes per call. So what's 40
Doing the
times?
same story.
Right, same thing over and over again. So let's say it's 15 minutes. Let's say it's 10 minutes. So
Yep.
40 times, that's 400 minutes. How many hours is that, right? That's a long time. And then you got to go in and you have to type out what each person said because you wrote it down in the notes, right? Well, I talked to Mr. John Smith. He says this. Roof is this old, verified mortgage, blah 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 blah. 8 p.m. Thursday, whatever it is. I have to go into you have to document the file in Xactimate or
Yep.
whatever it is. You have to document that you contacted them because, say you talk to Mr. Smith, right? And then 2 days later, you set the appointment up and everything, you're good to go. 2 days later, maybe Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith are separated, right? And she
Yes.
calls and where's my adjuster? Yeah, I've been waiting 3 days. My
Yep.
neighbors their adjuster already came out, blah, 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 what? And then they look in the file and they say, oh, well, it looks like Matt talked to Mr. Smith 2 days ago at 11 o'clock in the
Yep.
morning, and he said all these things. He set the appointment for tomorrow. You know, oh, okay, well, great,
Yeah.
right? It happens all the time because the first thing that they do, if somebody calls in, no matter what, first thing your manager is going to do is they're going to jump into exact analysis and look at the notes to see what you've done so far on the claim, right? And if I'm doing a
Yes.
file review, if I'm a manager or whatever, that's what I'm going to do because that's the only way to know what's going on in the claim. If you just like contact a bunch of people, and tomorrow morning I'll get up and I'll document all these. It's going to take you half a day to do
Yeah.
it, and the phone will be ringing, something
Yeah.
will happen, something will come up, and you call me now, right? You're going to get that text.
Yeah.
So
Now, I don't want, there are lots of different carriers. Somebody posted a question, how does it work, whenever initial contact needs to be made and other things besides text. Lots of our adjusters, they still use the text messaging and they still confirm that way, but then they'll call them at the end of the day. But the first text that goes out is giving that homeowner your name and phone number. Okay.
yeah,
So, we've been preparing for hurricane season and trying to be able to help adjusters understand that just because they're using the automated system does not mean that they can't pick up the phone and call those homeowners. You can still talk to them.
right.
We actually have lots of wives that use Schedule It, the software, and they actually pick up the phone and still call all the homeowners because they have all day long, and that's the only thing that their husband gives them to do. I talk to them all the time, and it's funny because they like talking to the homeowner. But if you're the adjuster, you're the only one trying to do 5 people's jobs, then it comes in really handy for you.
That's right. That's
So,
right. And listen,
yeah.
there may be certain circumstances where you need to call like a wildfire. I'm calling people. You could probably you could use it to set up the appointment, and I'm going to follow up for sure because in a lot of cases their house may be
Yeah.
gone. And they don't want to talk to the techs.
Yes.
They want to talk to a person who's going to come out, write that claim. Tell them what's going to happen next, walk them through the process, and be like their point person. And I will say, I think people need to have a really fundamental understanding of how to schedule things and how much, because if you have never done claims before and they give you 35 hail claims, right? How long is it going to take you to do that, right? If you don't know, then setting up a schedule, it's going to be a little bit sketchy, which is why we say, for a lot of reasons, always start with doing it 1 or 2 claims a day, to start for the first week, and then ramp up. You can ramp up fast. Looks like Christopher says, I'm new. I say I get 40 claims. Can I schedule it? Schedule 2 a day first week, then 4 a day second week, 6 the third. So can he do custom weeks?
Nope. You can do 2 a day, and then you can drag and drop them wherever you want to add more to it.
Yeah.
That's the only way to be able to do it. Let's go back to another, working on that same thing. You talked about that you were thinking about it and then you lost it earlier, Matt. I just did the exact same thing.
Oh.
Yep.
No worries.
So whenever they're talking about 40 claims, 2 a day the first week, 4 the second week, 6 the third week. I know what I was going to say.
Okay.
Make sure that you're giving yourself writing days. That's the number one thing. Whenever everybody goes to a storm, they're like, no, I don't need to take any days off.
Yeah.
Look, you can move people up if you're caught up, but save yourself and put 2 writing days in a week at least.
Yeah. And I'll just follow up real quick on that as far as kind of customizing schedule it. So you will, there's the top section of the screen when you get into the dashboard of the main scheduling screen, it'll have you pick your preferences, right? And then you can, it's all on the same screen for the most part, which is really awesome. But you pick your preferences and then you hit route or schedule, right? Yep. And then it'll fill up your calendar and you can scroll up and look at your calendar. Then you can drag and drop those anywhere you want to, as long as you're not dragging, one that's 2 hours away, and making it 15 minutes later than, So you can absolutely do that. Yeah. So you can before it ever contacts anybody, you can totally just spit polish your schedule however you want it to go, and then you hit the make contact button, and then it'll just start trying phone numbers, the contact information that's in there. So you don't have to it's automated, but you can definitely customize it for sure. So.
And you get a free trial. So I know that there's probably a lot of brand new adjusters. Go to schedule it, set up your free account. It's 14-day free trial. It does require you to have a credit card because we do go through security audits every single month, and that's how we identify that you are actually a human. Because there's so many other ways that can be done falsely. But you have to put in a credit card so it'll identify that you are an active, human being. And then it gives you 10 test claims. So look at the onboarding videos and then walk through the test claims, and you're going to be able to see how to move things around and how to be able to make yourself successful and do it before the storm.
Oh, right, yeah, Matt? For sure. This goes with everything. And you can go to adjustertv.com/schedule it. The graphics on the screen right now, the web address is on there. And you put your credit card number in there, but if you decide, this isn't for me, or I'm going to go do something else or whatever, if you cancel, then before it charges your card, then it's not any kind of a big deal. So, and I'm seeing there's some really great questions in the chat, and we're definitely going to hit those towards the end. But I wanted to kind of, we've got some more stuff to talk about here. And
we're going to talk about how to handle the daily business when you're gone.
Yeah. So before we get to that, I want to talk about another kind of critical gear. And it's not even gear, it's actually insurance. Did you know that you can get sued for mishandling a claim even if you didn't mishandle it? Even if there's somebody saying that there's bad faith on the claim, you could end up personally being named in a lawsuit as an adjuster, and it's not a cool thing. And then, did you also know that if you cause damage to an insured, the person, or their property, say if your ladder falls over and hits somebody on the head, puts they send them to the emergency room, or it causes damage to their car, or busts out a window, or causes some other kind of damage, you could, as an adjuster, as a field adjuster, be on the hook to pay for repairs and medical bills. And you can protect yourself with very affordable errors and omissions, which is the thing that covers you for the first thing, which they call like a negligence thing. If somebody says that you were negligent in the claim, and they want to sue you, and general liability, which covers you for the injuries and the broken stuff at a company or our sponsor, Kaplik. It's CPLIC. They call it Kaplik. Everybody in the industry calls them Kaplik. Well, I'm going to call them Kaplik, right? The great thing about this, and I talked to Kenton over at Kaplik, he said that if you get a letter saying you're named in a lawsuit, he says call us immediately, and we will help you get counsel and help you hold your hand through this whole thing. We will be there to support you. We're not just going to give you money. It all piles on you. You get sued and everything else and cleaned out, and then you file a claim with Kaplik. You go to them first, and they will defend you. They'll do everything, which is amazing, right? It's not something I think that's super common, but if it happens, I mean, you could get it's insurance, right? You're transferring risk, right? So to download the free Insurance for Adjusters guide, which kind of talks about all the different kinds of insurance that you need to get as an adjuster, including E&O, general liability, commercial auto, that kind of thing, just head on over to cplic.net/adjustertv, and you can download that guide right over there. So, all right, well, let's take a look at.
Can I put something in there about Kaplik?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you need to have your own E&O insurance and your own general liability.
Yeah. And
Kaplik is fantastic. They've been a huge supporter of NACA. We're a huge supporter of them. Actually, it was NACA members, or they helped found, or there's some kind of tying back there. How Kaplik got started.
Yeah, they're adjusters. They're started by adjusters.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing about it is that I always hear people say, oh, well, the firm is taking $5 or $10 for every file.
Right.
Whenever it comes down to you going to court, and every note in your file, Darby Day from Alacrity said this to me last week. She's like, Rebah, every note should say, Dear Judge. And
right.
Every time you're putting a file note or you're doing anything on the file, you should just mentally think, Dear Judge.
Right.
Because what you're doing is you're preparing not for when you're going to court, not for if, but when you're going to court.
Right.
Lots of the Texas adjusters got named from Hurricane Ike, and claims that there wasn't anything wrong with the claim, but they were on the file and touched the file. So the attorneys put everybody that had ever touched that file onto the cases. And so, just take care of yourself, and remember that if a firm's taking money out and they're covering E&O and general liability, I still always had my own.
Get your own, because you don't know what their coverage is going to cover if they even care that much about you. Right. So it's better to have. It's less
than $500 a year.
Yeah, and Kaplik, like that. I mean, they're kind of your advocate, right? So you're. It's not just that you're, like I said, just filing. It's like filing a claim. The damage is already done. The second you get notification that you may be in a suit of some kind or something's happened, you're on the phone with them and they'll help you out. Because like I said, it was founded by adjusters for us, for our industry, because there's a lot of attorneys and PAs and people that there's a lot of money in insurance, and it draws a lot of people in, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so let's talk about daily life. Let's what do you do when you're not home, right? And then maybe we'll talk a little bit about, this is the thing that I had my brain fart on earlier. It's like, if you do daily claims, how do you talk to your daily firm and say, hey, I want to go on CAT, right? But let's start with kind of how to handle your daily business, your stuff at home, maybe yard work and things like that when you're on CAT.
Yeah, so first of all, you should already have somebody lined up to be able to, don't depend on the post office to stop your mail. Okay, have
Right.
somebody picking up your mail because we hear it all the time. Adjusters will put in a stop mail, and then they'll get home and it'll be full. And people would have obviously known, especially in this current environment, theft. People are
Yeah.
looking for homes or apartments that they can break into. So just be cautious about that. The second thing I would say about the daily claim life is turn off your water.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is come home to your own water damage or have an emergency.
Then you know this from
Um,
actual firsthand
but,
experience.
at Schedule It, I talk to so many adjusters and I hear of all these things that have happened. Nothing's worse than getting home and getting to your own, you know, water damage, as my friend Dave told me about. So, anyhow, making sure to just turn off the water. It's not that hard. So, but the thing I wanted to really talk about on daily claims adjusters, you guys built up a business.
Yeah.
This is a book of business and that you have cultivated. And so obviously the firms that are giving you daily claims appreciate your work. There's nothing wrong with calling them now and saying, hey, if a hurricane hits, will you pay me the same fee schedule of working the hurricane to stay home and work daily claims? Because they want to take care of those daily claims. They need somebody like you to stay there.
Oh
And
yeah.
lots of times we have seen that they will give the same fee schedules to the daily claims adjusters that they do to the hurricane adjusters that have gone and deployed.
Oh yeah. I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but that's. I mean, you would think that that's. I mean, it makes sense because because
Yes.
like
Well,
and I always
fortunately,
yeah, and I tell people I say, listen to me, when they find good adjusters, they want to figure out a way to hang on to them, and that's one way. It sounds like that they absolutely will. So I mean, being the
yep.
last person there and saying I'm staying here, I'm gonna no matter what, I'll take care of you guys. Everybody else took off. I'm staying home. I mean, you're
Right.
a rock star. You're gonna be managing at that company before you know it, right?
Yeah.
So that's a
And I mean,
great
and
way
they're
to
really
build a
good
relationship.
at. Yeah, and I mean, just be upfront and honest with them. Say, you know what, it's all about revenue, and it's all about revenue for them too.
Yeah.
They don't require these timelines because they want to. They require them because that's the only way they can get the business from the carrier. That's what the carrier is requesting. So it's, you can't tell your customer, oh, well, I'm not going to do what you want, because the customer will then go find somebody else that will.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
that hard.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
sometimes, they'll just in regular situations, well, that's not the right one. They will, you may be working like a hailstorm, right, somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and they may
Yeah.
say, I've gotten this call before. Hey, Matt, listen, I got one. It's 4 towns over, it's 5 counties over, whatever. It's a 2.5 hour one-way drive. The last two people I just called said no way. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to leave their little zip code where they're doing all their hail claims. And I'll say,
Yep.
no problem. Just send it over. I'll take care of it. And not be like, oh, how far is it? I mean, it's just put yourself in the person's other person's shoes for a second. They have to take care of that claim. They're contractually bound by their relationship with the carrier to take care of
Yeah.
that claim. And he told the carrier, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. So he needs somebody else to say, don't worry, my guys will take care of it. And then they give it to the guy that takes care of it. And that guy gets remembered. Or gal. I mean, when I say guy,
Right.
I mean people. But that's a sign of a good person that they want to hang on to. And when I mean by good, I mean like professional. They're not
Yeah.
complaining or whining if you have to bunch of extra miles on their brand new, F-350 or whatever. Why he showed up on CAT with that truck anyway, I don't know. But hey, whatever. I've done it. Um, but yeah, so developing relationships.
That was before you were married.
Exactly right. But developing relationships by being the person that's going to show them that you're dedicated to them and that you are there to help them. You will never not be busy. You'll always have something to do because they want people like that so bad. And there's not everybody does that, and so it's a very very valuable thing.
Yeah.
And they have to learn that from just interacting with you, and you can't really put that on your resume. I'm very reliable, and I'll do whatever you know. People say all kinds of things on their resumes, but so it's, you know, when you go in your first storm, like if you get deployed to a big hurricane this year, that's going to be your resume, no matter what else. If you have a PhD in claims, a CPCU or something like that, if you can't handle the workload and you wash out, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter how nice your resume looks. The only thing that they care about is that you had outstanding customer service, no matter what happened with the claim. You've got good technical accuracy, and you are fast, right? So you got to be able to build up speed and keep those first two things at a high level. You know, you can go faster, but your quality is going to nosedive, and that's when they're like, you know, you're a fast adjuster, but your claims suck, and everybody doesn't, you know, all the customers are calling in and complaining. You're creating more work. They don't want that guy. And by guy, I mean
Yeah.
or guy.
You know, you really want to take care of the claim as if it was your own. You know, if
Yeah,
this
exactly.
was your house, you know, and you had to take this apart, you know, then you definitely want to be able to take care of that person the same way as you would if it was your mother or your own claim. So
Yeah,
look
for
at
sure.
them like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me hit one more of these here. So we got speaking of IA firms, one of our sponsors is a company called CCMS and Associates, and they have been called a big mom and pops by their adjusters that work on their team because they care about the adjusters. They feel like when they call in, they're talking to the owners of the company, right? They're a kind of a big little firm. They're kind of a boutique firm in a way. They're doing a lot of really innovative stuff over there. I got some interviews with them a few weeks ago and learned about all of it. Very, very interesting and very, very, they're very adaptive, especially to all the technology stuff that's coming down the pike. And they're finding new ways to kind of keep us busy, right? And they're opening new sort of like lines of business for adjusters, especially in light of like photo assist stuff and things like that, and sort of the aftermath of those things. There's roles now to like, anyway, you got to check them out anyway. So they're dedicated to training and developing, you know, a really talented adjusting team. They're very, very aggressive. They're very, very ambitious. They want to take over the world, these guys, and I think they can do it. They are the nicest people. If you would like to become a part of their family, I definitely would say email your resume and put a cover letter on there, right? A little cover letter, just a couple of bullet points, highlighting some things in your resume. Introduce yourself, you know, say hi, right? Don't just send them just a big old resume. Send that to careers at ccmsclaims.com. And also you can apply at ccmsclaims.com/work with us to find out more information about those guys and kind of poke around on their website and check out what they've got going on. But super cool group of people. Hernando and Cassie run that outfit, and I got to meet their entire leadership team, and really, really, really great bunch of people. So definitely check them out. All right. So how about accounting for adjusters? You know, like I'm talking about mileage, per diem, expenses, you know, how to manage your money as if you're, you know, a working CAT adjuster and you have zero income for a part of the year, and then you get like skyrocket income and it does this all summer long and then it's back to zero. How do you even manage your money? How do you save up for your, you know, utilities, and how do you save money for the future? Like how do you do it? How do you do it, Rebah?
Yeah, so we call this the run rate in the startup world and in the new adjuster world. You know, you need to be able to identify, first of all, how much money do you need per month? Okay, so let's say after your rent, after your vehicles, after your food. Now, this does not include all you guys that have casino on your list of requirements, okay? Because I know there's quite a few of you. But this does not include that as a requirement for the monthly expenses. Your food, you know, your health insurance, your E&O insurance, your vehicle insurance, all your insurances. You know, what's your dollar amount? So let's just say that your dollar amount is $1,000, okay? Then you need to make sure that you have 12 months of that in the bank, always separate, okay? So that no matter what, that your run rate then is 12 months. If you're at 8,000, then your run rate's only 8 months. So then you constantly know what that amount is that you have in the bank to be able to keep you moving forward. Um, because this is a very storm-driven industry. But I would also encourage you to not just look at the adjusting side of the industry, that you should look at the desk adjusting whenever you don't have deployment
Yeah.
opportunities. You can look at the review areas, and you can also always contact your local restoration companies, your Serve Pros, your Paul Davises, your Belfours, because they always need somebody to be able to write exactimate estimates, especially in the winter. The winter time's the busiest for restoration because of all the fires and the smoke damages. So, being able to utilize the skills that you've learned in adjusting to offset and to be able to work in other parts of the industry. Let's talk about mileage and per diem. When you're using Schedule It, the software will create you an annual mileage report based on all the different places that you went to. It'll create a per diem report. And if you don't know what per diem is, that's what the government allotted amount is for you whenever you're staying, I believe it's 60 miles away from your home, at least 48 hours, I think is what it is. Don't quote me on that. You'll have to look that up underneath there. But the system will automatically calculate your per diem and your mileage reports that you just give to your accountant. Gosh, we used to spend like 3 weeks in January of every year calculating where we were the year before. And that just decreases your taxable income. So don't let an accountant tell you, oh, you can only write off what you expense, right, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, don't let the accountants tell you, oh, you can only, write off what you actually incurred. That's not true for mileage, and it's not true for whenever you're at least 60 miles away from home staying overnight. Tell them about per diem.
So per diem is an IRS thing that I never really fully understood. I just knew that I got an extra $25 per claim that was not taxed, and it was supposed to go for hotel and food and things like that. So depending on, I honestly, with the tax thing, I'm going to strongly recommend getting with a tax professional for sure, because I am not one.
Yes.
Don't take anything I say as advice. But they need to be familiar with our field because the per diem, is important. The mileage has always been my biggest expense by far. And then I've written off software expense like Xactimate monthly subscription. I've written that off. I've written off CE. I've written off licensing expenses. All that stuff is part of training. Any training that you do, you can write off as an expense, right? So if you do go to veteran adjusting school and you spend $22,000, you might be able to write off all or part of that, right? Depending on, again, whatever your tax person says, right? So I don't know. There's with tax changes, I would still keep track of it, and honestly, I would keep a separate account for that stuff so that you can, at tax time, you just hand them your statement to your tax person.
Yep.
Instead of having to sift through your regular personal stuff or whatever, because that adds days to the process. And you can even do your taxes yourself if you're brave, which I
Don't do it.
I do it. I've used an accountant in the past, and he charged me a lot of money, and he didn't know anything about the industry, and he was not good. Anyway,
Yeah.
but I've been doing it a while, so I know what I can do, and anyway, so I would say that when you're talking about your income, for example, let's say you are running cat all summer long and you make $80,000. We'll just throw that out there as a number. You really want to protect that money. So I would say, don't do what a lot of people do, especially if they're young, like 29-year-old guy like me, and go to the beach, right? Get off cat and then just go play and just blow money and buy pickup trucks and do whatever. It's like, winning the lottery, and then March, April, May rolls around the next year, and you're out of money, and you're, shaking out the couch cushions trying to find change and stuff. So I would say, especially these days, honestly, like back then, I didn't have a whole lot of other choices. There wasn't a lot of remote work. I couldn't do remote file review. I couldn't, because we had a paper file, right? I couldn't do remote desk adjusting like these days. I couldn't do photo assist claims, right? Which, people complain about those, but it's a great way to make extra money and to like to protect that $80,000 that you made. You can do those other, because it's in the app, right?
Right.
And you can you get off CAT and you like take a week off or whatever and play with the kids and, maybe go on vacation or something like that. And then I want to do some, photo claims and make a few $100 extra or a few thousand extra dollars a month to protect that money and to always have money going in instead of money going out, right? And then the other thing I wanted to mention about accounting in general, and this took me a while to figure out, and I ended up finding a book about it called Profit First. I don't know if some of you guys may have heard about it. But basically, you figure out like what you're talking about, your run rate, right, every month, and then you have to figure out your taxes. And so every when you're on CAT, right, and you start getting paychecks, even if you get a paycheck for $100, 18% or 20% of that or whatever goes into a tax, category, and then you have X percent goes to your run rate, like your personal, like the expenses you always have, your mortgage, car payment, whatever. And then so you break it down into percentages so that everything that comes in and automatically gets sifted out into the different folders. So by the end of your CAT deployment summer, your $80,000, 20% of that, $16,000 is already sitting in your tax account, right? You may not need that
Right.
that whole $16,000 because when you take your deductions and everything, but it's there. You don't have to scramble and try to figure it out because you have to pay taxes whether you're 1099 or you're a W-2, and then the rest of that stuff is automatically like, you have to sit down with it and like kind of work the numbers, and figure out what the percentages are. But it automatically goes to where it needs to go, and then you're set, right? Everything is your run rate's already taken care of for the next 12 months. Until you think you're going to get deployed again, I would give it 12 months for sure. And then, that's great. But then go protect that. Wait tables, if like that's, something that you used to do in college or whatever and you like doing it. So, I mean, it's a customer service thing. Do something to protect the money that you made. Part-time work, could be fun work, go do ladder assist, all kinds of stuff that you can do. Even doing daily stuff. These days, there's a lot of daily work that is app-based, right? So, and it's not like they're, it's wegolook.com, right? You just like accept or decline that assignment, and then you just go look at it, takes pictures, and then they put $40 in your checking account, just like that, right?
Yeah.
Super. And it takes 15 minutes. I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world. So, yeah. And then, we could talk about burnout a little bit.
Well, you know what?
This is your
Burnout
topic.
is huge. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
You push and you push and you push and you push, and for months on end, and you don't take time off. And look, a weekend is not enough time off. When you guys, all of us, we're doing 16, 18-hour days when we're deployed, and that's like 2 weeks straight on your body. And then you're going to get to a point, if you've never experienced burnout, you're going to get to a point where you're like, man, I just can't remember what I'm supposed to be doing next.
Right.
Things aren't coming as natural as they used to, right? And then you're going to want to sleep longer. And then obviously, we're not feeding ourselves the appropriate things that we should be feeding ourselves. It's not very healthy out on the road.
No.
We're usually sack from whatever drive-through we went through while we were on the phone with a reviewer talking about a claim or something. But burnout's real, and you should really look up, how does burnout feel and how can you prevent it? And know that you've got to give yourself some downtime, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to call the firm and say, look, I'm burnt out. I need 2 weeks. Let me finish up what I got and give me 2 weeks, please, because they're going to respect you way more than if you keep taking files and you don't do a good job on them. You're only as good as your last file that you turned in. Really.
That's right. Yeah, burnout. I mean, and it manifests itself in a lot of ways, and I've experienced it quite a bit because I'm a human being. Just I can do a lot of claims, but after week after week after week, month, time starts to pass, and the summer starts to it's like Groundhog Day. If you guys have ever seen that movie, you wake up and it's literally the exact same day every single day. I'm up on a roof by 8:30, and and you go back to the hotel. And you're probably by yourself, unless you've got your spouse with you or whatever. Or if you were lucky and have some friends who are also on that same storm. Which, be careful. I don't drink on Cat, because you don't want to be standing up on a roof and 99 degree, Texas, Southland humidity with a hangover. Have a couple of cocktails the night before. You will. I mean, if you don't throw up. I mean, you could fall off. You could get dizzy. It's terrible. So anyway, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so and burnout can be something that over. I think that somebody told me the average lifespan of the career of a catastrophe adjuster is 2 years, which I'm like, that's crazy talk. I've been doing this for 20 years. But it can take a toll on you because years pass, and this is what happened to me. Years passed, about 10 years passed, and I looked up and I was like, I have given years of my life to claims. And what do I have to show for it? I mean, I saved a bunch of money or whatever, but that's it. I have no social life, Well, I'm a sociable guy, so I had some social life. But I wasn't I was single, and I didn't. It's hard to date when you're, on the road 8 months out of the year. Hey, I make a date with somebody, and then you get a call to deploy. I've had to do this, and I had to call the person back and say, "Oh, sorry, I gotta travel for work." Oh, we'll just do next weekend. Yeah, it's probably going to be this winter. Oh, really? It doesn't work, right? So it can wear you out, and so if you want to, the burnout can be short term, and it can definitely be long term for sure. And I would say hang in there for as long as you can. I mean, I wouldn't say go 2 weeks and then ask for 2 weeks off. You might do your first storm deployment, and then if a lot of times they'll say, "Hey, something just blew up in Minneapolis. Can you go?" Yes, absolutely. Or I'm going to set this one out, right? If you're already in a good spot, you got to take. I got to take a break. I can't do it. I got stuff piling up at home, family things, whatever it is, and they understand. I mean, that's the nature of the business. They've got a roster. They're going to call the next person on the list. But if they like you, they'll keep calling you. And I would try to say yes as much as possible.
Yep. Yeah. So you ready to start some questions, Matt?
Yeah. So before we jump into the Q&A, I got one last little mention here. When we talk about, again, get centered here in my screen, talk about doing hurricanes and stuff like that, I noticed that there's a couple of questions in the chat about licensing, right? You have to have at least one state adjuster license. If there is Hurricane Katrina hits and you don't have a license, you probably can still go work under an emergency license. But if you want to continue to get claims after kind of the first big, the first big push on the cat, or if you want to work other events after that, which if you end up this clicks with you and they want you, they're going to be like, listen, we want you to go work, but you don't have a license. Go get a license and then we'll put you to work, right? So I would, if you want to do this, go get the license now. You've got to get at least a home state license or DHS if your home state does not have an adjuster's license. You have to get a designated home state license. There's a lot of states that don't have licenses, like Colorado, Missouri, Kansas. I mean, there's a lot of the upper Midwest doesn't. It shows that you're serious about being a claims professional. And not only that, I mean, I don't know anybody else that really says this. They're glad to get it over with. And frankly, I am too. But you get a lot of really deep policy knowledge and insurance understanding from studying for your state licensing exams, right? I mean, you're going to learn kind of like how insurance, what it's for, when it started. It kind of gives you an overall picture of why we have insurance and socially what it's all about. And then you'll learn more about auto and bodily injury and all this other kind of stuff. If you're just doing CAT, you're never going to see a lot of that stuff, but you'll have an understanding of it, and it applies across the board. So, all that to say, you can get all of your pre-licensing and exam prep for a lot of states like Texas, Florida, and everywhere else, as well as ongoing continuing education, training, and credits at Adjuster Pro. And if you head on over to adjustertv.com/adjusterpro, I've got all the main states, and I got all the links and everything in there kind of lined up for you. So I would head on over to adjustertv.com/adjusterpro, check it out, because you have to have a license. It's super duper important. All right, well, let's get some questions. So have you noticed one in there that you want to tackle, or?
Yeah. So there's one in here that everybody keeps asking about new adjusters and deploying.
Mm-hmm.
It's in multiple chats or comments. So I'm just going to throw this out there. If you go to schedulit.io and in the bottom right-hand side, you see the little chat button, tomorrow, not tonight, or whenever, feel free to say, hey, I'm a new adjuster, and which firms, are deploying right now, or, who takes new adjusters. And typically I'll ask you, where are you from? Where are you at currently? Because, as a past president of NACA, then I have this whole network of NACA adjusters that I might be able to connect you with.
Yeah.
And
we should talk about NACA a little bit here.
And say, hey, yeah, hey, I saw this on, Adjuster TV, and you said that we could chat in. I'm in this area, and I'm a new adjuster. Is there anybody that you know in this area that maybe I could talk to, or are there any IA firms that are looking for new adjusters in my area? One of the things I would tell you, if you're looking to do a ride-along, ride-alongs are the old way of doing things. You really do need to be part of Matt's group. I think you've got a ride-along in your videos, for your subscribers, right, Matt?
Yeah, so Adjuster TV Plus is a series of kind of detailed scoping videos. Just super quick, not to derail you or to get too far off what you're talking about. If you go on a ride along with an adjuster, like say, for example, I say, Rebah, you can ride along with me. I'm not teaching you stuff. You're just going to watch me. I'm not letting you touch my computer. That's for darn sure, because I don't want, my carrier or my IA firm knows the quality of the estimates that I write. And if you're like, well, I have a level 3 certification, blah, 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 I can write your estimates for you. No, I tried it, and it doesn't work. I mean, and the other adjuster was a good adjuster, but they just, Matt, this is different than what you normally turn in, and they're kicking files back, right? So I would say, when you go on a ride along, you really want to go to be able to talk to that person, like after they're done working, right? And I would say also to watch the process, watch them interact with insureds, see how long it takes for them to do stuff, see how their vehicle's set up. And then ask limited questions, because they're working. They're not getting paid by the hour. They get paid by the claim. And so they can't stop. This is my point. They can't stop and be like, well, what I'm doing right here is let's talk all about garage doors for 15 minutes, right? So I sat down with Guy Grand at Veteran Adjusting School and said, why don't we just shoot videos like we're doing a ride along, but instead of like you just watching like somebody do something, we're just going to start talking. And Guy, we can both talk about this, and we did. Like, I was worried, like, let's do a hail claim. Guy has a bunch of houses down there in Arizona. We scoped tons of houses, did all kinds of different claims. And I was like, well, maybe we'll get 20 minutes out of this. Like 2 hours later, we're still in the front yard talking about stuff, right? So I have these videos. They're in long series of, lesson 1 through 19 or whatever it is on a hail claim, right? And then the next one we're going to put out, or the next ones we've got a smoke damage claim, which is a common one. We've got a water supply, water damage to the floor. What do you do in that? I mean, it just, everything that you want to know, like, we're just like, I don't know. I mean, we had so much fun doing it. And so that's at adjustertvplus.com, which is what Rebah's talking about. And we call it kind of like a virtual ride along, sort of, but it's basically scoping videos where the guy who runs like the probably arguably the best adjusting school in the country, and me, you're watching us scope a loss together, and we're talking about it, right, the whole time. So we're going through step by step how you do everything, and then going off on little tangents. Well, this is what happens, but this happens. Well, the insurance says this. Well, let's talk about that for 9 minutes. And so it's like, it's cool stuff, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So adjustertvplus.com, and then I can't remember what you were saying.
No, I was just saying, like if they're looking for a company to deploy them, feel free to come to Schedulit, at schedulit.io, and chat with me, or one of us on the team, and tell us where you're at and what you're trying to be able to do. And if you're telling me that you're looking for somebody right along, I'm going to send you back to Matt's videos because that's not an efficient use of adjuster's time anymore because
Right.
Matt has come up with this, right? But if you're telling me that, hey, I'm in Arkansas and I'm looking to be able to run some daily claims here, what carriers or what firms have claims in my area? We do that all the time for Schedule It users. I mean, they'll tell you, I call them up, I called somebody in Maryland today. I'm like, look, I got a firm that's looking for an adjuster in Maryland. Can you take another one? They've only got one claim. And they're like, yeah, no problem. But I mean, last week I called somebody and they had somebody that got hurt in one of the Western states and they needed somebody to take 30 claims over.
Yeah.
So, you're using Schedule It. It's not just that you're using a scheduling app. Firms call me all the time and they're like, I need somebody here. And so then, I'm constantly trying to be able to help you find more work. That's what we're there for.
All right. So L Baines DT. I don't know if that's like an actual full name or it's just it's like several names put together. Asks, does Schedule It work for carriers who require that you call? In other words, is there, and I know the answer to this, but if they say, for example, if they don't want your initial contact to be via text, email, etc. So what can you tell us about carrier requirements for first contact and how Schedule It works with that?
Yeah. So, it just all depends. Like we have one carrier that doesn't want any text. So we have it turned off behind the scenes. And so if you sign up to use Schedule It and I see that, and you message and say, hey, this carrier, they don't want me to use text message, then I, have the ability to turn that off by carrier and firm combination. Okay. But, we have lots of people that say, hey, I don't want to use the automated text or email ever on my claims. I just want to use it for the mapping, the routing, the scheduling, so I can use the mobile app, so I can update my contacts and everything. And it'll be faster. Then they do it all the time. So, it's nothing's ever 100%, but it sure is 99% perfect. So.
Yes, which, honestly, the perfect is the enemy of the done.
Yes.
Ben Dials asks, what's the secret to closing 60 daily files or more monthly?
You know what? It's really just knowing which IA firms have claims in your area.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to talk to those firms and get on their roster and they want you. They want to find you. That's one of the biggest challenges in our industry.
Yes, big time.
And so, it's networking, definitely.
Yeah.
And identifying, who has the business. Because today, the business might be with firm A, but they may lose the count, and it's going to go to firm B. So if you're not tied into the network and talking to people, then you're not going to know, hey, I need to go get on firm B's roster now to be able to have the same work I had last week with firm A.
Yep. And daily is different than CAT, like we were talking about earlier. In most cases, not all, because there may be one IA firm that has so much work. Like in certain parts of the country, there's not very many adjusters. I'd say the Northeast and the Northwest. There's a sort of limited number in the Mountain West, and in rural areas, everything that they've got, it may be enough to keep one person busy. But generally speaking, you have to, you kind of have to build, like Rebah was saying, like a business, like a book of business, right? So, in other words, you would have. If you're in a busy area or you're like in an area where you have other adjusters, you may have to get 4, 5, 6, 10 IA firms that are going to give you 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 claims a month, enough to kind of build up I would say if you're doing daily claims, they're going to be more complex, which is one of the reasons why newer folks can't, generally speaking, get daily claims unless they've done some CAT work first, because CAT work is super repetitive. The claims are generally all cosmetic on the outside of the house kind of thing. Daily is going to be busted dishwasher, overflow, burst pipes, things like that, where there's a lot of water damage and you've got significant damage and they're complex. There may be ALE involved. They may have a lot of contents and things like that. So it's not like a brand spanking new adjuster with a level 2 Xactimate certification and a license is going to get handed an $85,000 kitchen redo because they wanted to do daily claims. They're not going to do that, generally speaking. So you need to kind of get your feet wet with doing CAT first. You're going to build a relationship with an IA firm, or one or two or three maybe. If you work for a few different companies over the course of a summer or a couple of years, and they're going to get to know you, and then you can just approach them, like Rebah was just saying, call them and say, hey, I've got 2 years of experience doing CAT. I've done, X number of claims. There's 200 my first year and 600 my second year. I want to start doing daily in my area, and I wanted to know if you have any carriers that we can, that have overflow work or stuff that you guys, in this area that I can take care of for you, right? And then you just it might take a year or two, in order to build up a daily business, and you may have to do other work. But once you do, I know there's some daily adjusters out there with paid off $500,000 houses. So it's not a bad way to go, especially if you're Johnny on the spot or a Janie on the spot, and you're willing to just go. They say, hey, we got one. It's 3 hours one way. I'll take care of it, no problem. It'll be on your desk, Friday, and it'll be taken care of, done.
Yeah.
Right? Smile. Don't no complaining about mileage, none of that stuff. That's how you build. It's all, like I always say, it's a people person job. You build relationships, you network, you attend conferences like NACA, you join NACA, and you will be able to get kind of locked into a network of people who will be able to mentor you. People who've been doing this for decades. So that's all they do is they mentor new adjusters, right? They take them under their wing. So lots of opportunities for it, and if you got to take advantage of it, if you add up all the training and the conferences and the association fees and all this stuff, it's this much out of all the money that you can make as a claims professional, as an independent claims professional. There's so many things that you can do, and these days there's even more things. If it seems like technology is making us obsolete, that's not. It's just giving us more things to do, frankly, to generate income, right? And it easier, right? People complain about the photo assist thing. People can whine about that. It's scoping. It's the easiest part of the claim, and you're going to get $150 to go. It takes 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Go do it. Seriously, it's not going to go away just because you want to hate on it on Facebook. Right? It's there. It's the carriers are doing it, right? They still need people to go and write checks on big losses and medium-sized losses, hurricanes. I don't know how if they're going to do photo assist on hurricanes. They probably do to a certain degree, but some of those are big losses, and they're not. As a homeowner, I'd be pretty upset if somebody couldn't answer my questions. They came out to the house and just held their phone up and walked around and just, well, your desk adjuster will be in touch with you. I don't know, sometime. I'm just here to do this. Bye. I'm gonna call my agent and be like, excuse me, let's have a conversation, friend. It's not gonna be a fun one for you. So customer service, it's a people person job. Technology will not get rid of us. I think I went off topic a little bit, but any additional thoughts about that?
No, I just think that, you bring up some really valid, concerns that everybody's thinking about. These are new adjusters, and they're wondering, am I going to get deployed? Am I going to be able to make a living to be able to take care of my family? Yes, you can, but it's how much you invest in you. You're going to have to spend money to make money. And that's by buying an Xactimate license, by getting Schedule It, by getting, Adjuster TV Plus subscription. These things are there, but you have to utilize them yourself. You have to practice on Xactimate. You have to watch the videos. And, inside of Schedule It, it tells you the top 10 IA firms as assigning claims for the last 7 days. And it updates every hour. So every hour you can look at your phone, your app, and it'll tell you the top 10 firms assigning claims, and that's who you call. You want to find work, you have to, invest in yourself.
I want to show you guys this real quick while we're talking. I don't know if you can see this, Rebah, but it's the registration fee schedule. Today's the 29th. What I'm looking at here. NACA. Yeah, so this is for the conference or the convention in January. And it's going to be January 10th through 14th, right? Yeah, that's the other right there on the screen. And it's going to be at the Rio. We moved it to the Rio, or they moved it to the Rio. Right now, tonight, up until July 31st, it's $479 is the early bird pricing for a non-member. And a member can get into the conference for the fee for $299, and then it just starts to go up from there. And I have to tell you guys, and this is one of the reasons why I put this on the screen, and we talk about this all the time. Rebah talks about this, but networking, if you neglect to network, you're not going to maximize the potential of your career as an adjuster. Even if you're an experienced adjuster, this conference, basically the way it goes is the first full 3 days of this conference is nothing but IA firm hiring managers, team managers, operations managers, CEOs. They're all sitting in a little booth, and they're waiting for you to, with your little NACA conference app, to schedule an appointment to sit down and talk with them and do a face-to-face interview, right? And I don't know how many of you are going to be there this year, but there have been up to 50 or 60 IA firms. You can go to a one-off, IA firm conference, and a lot of IA firms have their own little conference, but it's just for them. All of the IA firm conferences I've ever been to, you don't interview with anybody. You just show up, take some CE, and sit through a keynote, and then they do a little party and feed you something, and then you're out. They don't have an opportunity to sit down and interview that I've ever been to anyway. Even if this was $3,000, it would be worth it, especially if you walked out of there with a half a dozen really, really good contacts. Dave was telling me, I was interviewing the president of NACA this past weekend. He came up to Montana, and he told me, he said a lot of times adjusters will leave the conference with claims in hand, right? And that pays for it. That just paid for that trip, right? It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And if you want to, I would say the single thing, if you're looking for a silver bullet, you got to go to this conference, you guys. More than any other single thing, it will move the needle the most on your career as an adjuster, whether you're brand spanking new or you've been doing this for years. Because there are IA firms there that won't take adjusters that have less than 10 years of experience for large loss commercial, and you want that work. If you're an experienced adjuster, you want to move up. Stop doing CAT, stop doing residential daily stuff, and get into the big boy stuff, right? Those IA firms are there, and they sit there and they're waiting for people to talk to them. Proventure, those guys, it is worth its weight in gold, times 10. I'm going to be there, as long as it's full speed ahead. Assuming that nothing else happens this year. But I can't talk about it enough. So you guys got to check it out at nacatadj.org/convention. That link's there on the screen, and these are the prices. Go ahead and get signed up for it. The last thing I'll say about it is that, there's not just a bunch of interviews, which by itself, if that was the only thing, it would be the greatest thing ever. But also during the day, there's all kinds of training, right? Jared from Adjuster Supply and Bully Bag is going to be there doing rope and harness, right? You can get rope and harness certified through him. I don't know if you guys doing a daily desk adjusting thing again, the desk adjusting, Transcend doing that. That's huge, and that's a big opportunity. That's something that you can do desk adjusting, right, remotely. Claims and your PJs.
I think Creative Adjusting is doing it again.
Okay, yeah. So there's a lot of C, and now it's all for CE, right? So they have all this training there, and then on the fourth day is the big expo, right? So then it's everybody, I don't know what the theme is this year.
No, we're not doing the expo this year.
What? Why not?
Because we're trying to get a certification class on that day.
Okay, all right. So no luau, no funny hats and things.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're doing interviews, full expo, all 3 days.
Okay.
And then the fourth day, we're trying to be able to get a certification, that creates more value. So you can come and do your NFIP. You can interview with, last year I think we had 53 IA firms there that were interviewing for 3 days straight. You couldn't make it to all of them and talk to them.
No. They're all in one building, one room.
Yeah. Especially afterwards, you can do dinners, you can do you're meeting them at the craps table. Brad's like, I heard gambling's legal in Vegas. Yep, it's gambling and networking, and it's an expense that's a tax write-off. And then Larry wanted to know how much is a NACA membership. A NACA membership is $200, I think.
Yeah.
Yep, per year. Yeah. So, it's going to be. It is the one single convention of the year that pays. I mean, it's just it's the return on your investment.
For sure.
If you invest in yourself, it will return to you.
Yeah, it's absolutely worth every penny by multiples, for sure. And honestly, you guys, I wouldn't say that if I didn't truly believe it to be the case, because I neglected networking for a long time. I believe to the detriment of my career, and especially in the early days. And this is, you make friends, and then you go the next year, and you see them again, and they're, especially a lot of, like you're saying, like a lot of the hiring managers, they're at a different company now, right? Why don't you come on and go over and jump on this roster, right? And I've had that happen before. And they talk to each other, The networking.
Absolutely, they do.
It's you can work on your skills and on your downtime. And again, this isn't rocket science. The networking piece, being a people person and being available and being ready to go, and being willing to do things with a smile that help. It would help them out because they're in a bind. If they got to get that claim that's 3 hours over there looked at, just take care of it, and you'll be very well rewarded. Okay, so I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. But I really, really appreciate you, Rebah. This has been really cool. And again, yeah, no problem. And listen, everybody go over to adjustertv.com/schedule it. And like I said, I have all the links kind of lined out where, it's the New York, I'm sorry, that's for Adjuster Pro, dude.
No, you need some more sleep there, Matt.
I do.
And Dave, did too much videoing and everything this weekend. But yeah, please go to, Matt's, site and look up Schedule It, because the net, has a special link in there. And so we take care of our Adjuster TV clients.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, if you guys have any further questions, you can reach out to me at Matthew@adjustertv.com or Rebah at schedueit.io and jump in the chat tomorrow, because it sounds like you're shutting it down for the evening. You know what? I'll hang out in the chat here for probably another 10 or 15 minutes if you guys have any further questions. But we'll go ahead and wrap this up. And thanks for being here, you guys. And we will catch you on the next one. And actually, the next one, so that you know, is I'm going to get one of the sales directors from Extended Stay to come on and talk about hotels. And they're in NACA. Debbie, so we're going to talk to Debbie. Their booth was actually right next to mine at NACA, and so I got to talking to her and actually interviewed her. But I'm going to see if I can't get her on to talk about, picking a hotel and what kind of deals that they have and how you can kind of maximize your, save money but not have to, stay in a place that has cockroaches and stuff like that. So that's going to be super fun. But you guys will know when it comes out. But anyway, thanks so much, Rebah. Thanks everybody, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Thanks, Matt.